Hi there and welcome back. And in this lesson, we're going to be talking about happiness in adversity. And look, okay, sometimes things are not going to go your way, all right? Sometimes it's just those little things that kind of irritate, that push you off track. You know, things like the car not starting, the kids misbehaving, and maybe your patience getting worn thin. Maybe someone cuts you up in traffic on the way to work, or the supermarket is out of bread and milk when you need it. And whatever it might be, sometimes it's just these really small things that, when accumulated, can mess with your general state a little. And then, of course, there are the times when life just kind of crashes down around your ears. Maybe someone close to you dies, you lose your job, or a loved one gets ill. And at these times, happiness can seem sometimes really, really far off in the scheme of things. And yet, there are some people who seem to be able to rise above life's challenges almost without any effort. So how do they do it? Well, there are a couple of things here, all right? And speaking to you, as someone who's had his fair share of hard times, all right? For me, at least, there came a point when I said, do you know what? Enough. Like, I decided that I'd been unhappy long enough, you know? And I think that that's an important point and something that you could really do to take on, okay? Being unhappy is perfectly normal. When bad stuff happens in life, it would be kind of weird if you were to be constantly happy, wouldn't it? So being unhappy has its place, as we've been learning about. However, and here is the key, appropriate unhappiness has its place, okay? If your dog drops dead one morning, it's absolutely appropriate for you to be sad, isn't it? And in fact, it may well be perfectly appropriate to be sad a week later. But how about a year later or 2 years later? Would that be appropriate? Well, for most people, it probably wouldn't be. And often one of the best ways of dealing with unhappiness that has become a problem for people is to simply ask them outright, how long would be an appropriate time to feel this way? And when they answer, what happens is they rationalize the behavior at the unconscious level and begin to make changes. Now, the other aspect of this is, what does unhappiness stand in the way of? What happiness is prevented by being unhappy? What progress is halted by being unhappy? Now, when I was going through a bad time, it was this that changed things for me, all right? I began to notice how many things I was sacrificing by not being happy and by staying unhappy, and ultimately, I was unprepared to accept that any longer. You see, it no longer became appropriate for me to sacrifice things that I wanted in the name of being unhappy. So if your client or you feel unhappy, then it's okay. It's normal. And it's to be expected as we go through life, so long as it's appropriate sadness. Then it's just part of the journey. However, be sure to be aware of what is appropriate in certain situations. And of course, focus on the solution instead of on your problem. And be sure to allow your plans and your progress to continue without sadness holding them up. Make your happiness a higher priority than whatever it is that is keeping you from enjoying your life fully, all right? Even if it's pain, grief, or fear. And if there's something that's blocking you, and if that something happens to be anger or resentment about something that's happened in the past, then you need to commit to letting it go. This is a really big thing, all right? The past is gone, okay? So take its lessons and move on, because no matter what's happened in the past, you can't change it. You can only learn from it, reframe it into a positive learning experience, and then move on from it. No matter how cruelly you've been treated by someone else, there's no need to relive that pain by constantly going over it in your mind. Now, that would not be an appropriate use of your energy. Now, I know letting go is easier said than done, all right? And it's absolutely possible, and it starts with a decision. And often is the quickest way to getting really, truly happy. Okay, so let's now move on to the very next lecture. So head on over there now, and I'll see you there.